Abigail is directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, and stars Melissa Barrera, Dan Stevens, and among others. And in this story, it deals with a group of bandits who kidnap a little girl, and, well, if you've seen from the trailers, they end up realizing that the girl turns out to be a vampire, and they have to survive in this secluded house that's comes to life and pretty much is traps them inside. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, this movie was directed by the guys that gave us the last two Scream films, which I actually really enjoyed, despite some issues here and there that I had with the last two Scream movies, with some of its writing aspects. I still really enjoyed the way that these guys were able to continue the franchise, and I also really enjoyed their work on Ready or Not that came out a few years ago as well, and I thought was a really fun, kind of movie that really surprised me, and it had a very similar feeling like with this one, with it all being in one house, in one kind of setting, so to speak. And so I thought that was a really good movie. And going to this one, I was really excited for it because I really do enjoy a lot of vampire films. And when I actually was reading about how this was supposed to be basically a modern adaptation of Dracula's Daughter, which came out in the 30s, which, for those that don't know, was actually a follow-up to the original 1931 Dracula with Bela Lugosi. And this one kind of really got me interested because not only did it have, the kind of fun type of vampire stuff that we surprisingly got last year with Renfield, with it being gory as hell and everything, but also the whole kind of like fun vibe these directors are known for throughout their films and everything. I just really got interested with it the most. And so after upon seeing the movie, I can say that I had a blast with this. This definitely makes a great double feature with a lot of other great vampire films, mainly from Dusk Till Dawn. And I'll get to that in a moment, but it certainly does a great blend of mixing the humor well, while also delivering a lot of what you expect from a vampire movie. A lot of great, stuff. They really have the love for the vampire lore, the kind of references, the little small Easter eggs that we get to some of the classic vampire movies, like from Dracula and everything. I thought was interesting, and the way it played out. And just the whole kind of like humor, and a lot of the characters as well, they all really shine in their own regard, and they all really work together, and they all get to really shine through in their own right. But to give the rest of my pros, I thought the cast in this were all phenomenal, especially Melissa Barrera. I've really enjoyed her as an actress, and since I saw her in the last two Scream films, I've really enjoyed her work, especially working with these directors, and I think that she really has a great career doing in these kind of horror type movies, and she really pulls it off here. And she's definitely the one that you can kind of really empathize with the most, because she kind of has her own kind of backstory that I won't get into that's going on. But also, she seems like the more like sane one out of the group, where she's really trying to see how the whole night plays out and survive. And also, you get that kind of feeling, like especially in the beginning, that she's kind of getting a little close to the little girl, and she seems to be like the voice of reason throughout. And so she was great. And then also Dan Stevens, I've really had a great time. He was also great too. I really enjoyed his performance in Godzilla and Kong, and so him in this one as well was really great, seeing him be able to chew scenery and playing with that very kind of thick New York accent that he goes for, which can be exaggerated as a minor nitpick, but it still works because I thought it still really fit his character well, and the way that he tends to try to look into things, and he has this kind of conflict that happens with Melissa's character, and that really, I thought them two really shine in their own regard, and they had great chemistry. In fact, the rest of the cast all had great chemistry in their own right, especially Kevin Durant as well. He may not be he might not be so bright, but he really shows that he definitely has a heart to himself, and he's kind of lovable in a certain way, because he just comes across as a very kind of like, maybe not so innocent, but just kind of like that lovable kind of like a Hulk, like a human version of Hulk, basically, in that good way. Where if you imagine it, take Hulk, but like as more human form and not Bruce Banner, if that makes sense. And so he was great, and then it was also great seeing some other familiar favorites like Giancarlo Esposito playing the boss of the group. And I'm not going to go into detail of his character because he pretty much sets everything up when the group are having to go on their mission at the beginning of the movie and stuff, and so there's not really a whole lot to go on about him, but he's still great to see and all that, and it's always great seeing him in any kind of project, any kind of project that he's always in. And then the other ones too that stick out, like Catherine Newton, who like I've said in my other videos, I've become to really enjoy her more as an actress now, and I'm glad that she still is getting work in certain horror films, because between this and Freaky, and also from what I also heard from Lisa Frankenstein, it's great to see her do more of these type of roles, and she really pulled it off in this one. And then there's also Angus Cloud, who I'm not really too familiar with, but I do know that he did star in that show Euphoria, which I haven't seen, but I heard he was really good in it. May he tragically pass away. He tragically passed away, and may he rest in peace. But he was great in this as well as being in his last movie and everything. And then the biggest standout for me the most is definitely Alicia Weir, who plays the little girl. She was not only very intense as hell when she's playing in the vampire part, but also the way that she's able to play that kind of like sweet, innocent type of girl at first. I thought she really pulled it off, and that's another big thing I have to really admit too, is the way that she ends up going throughout the film, pretty much fucking with them throughout the movie, where you think that she's telling the truth on some things, and then she's not, so you don't really know how to really go with it, and she just really pulled it off in her own regard, and she definitely I definitely hope that she has a good career going in the future. But then the rest of the pros I have to will say too is that the movie gets gory as hell, like you expect. There's some really balls to the wall, like necks being bit and everything, and then a lot of great explosions that happen when somebody gets killed. That was really reminded me also of Ready or Not when that one came out too, if you know what I mean. So that was great, but also the production design, the way that the house itself really resembles as a care of its own right. It definitely had some vibes given of like a combination of House on Haunted Hill, the remake of House on Haunted Hill, but also the remake of 13 Ghosts that was also out, and in that the house is basically mechanically structured to where it's all sealed up, where it's all padded walls and stuff like that, and it's all electronically activated, where the walls get covered with mechanics and stuff. I thought that was great. And then one of the other biggest standouts for me the most is especially when it gets into some unexpected stuff that happens toward the third act that I actually really caught me off guard, and I really was really getting into it as well. Though I do kind of have like a small con with that does hold it back from being really too great, but it still worked, especially when it has its climax that takes place and its payoff. And then the other thing too I will have to say is that I have to admit that I'm kind of mixed on it, because there is a great build-up that it does throughout the first 40 minutes where you don't even really see much of the vampire action that takes place. But I think that is also a kind of the issue I have with the marketing, is that this is a movie that I get the reason why they wanted to sell it as a vampire film, because if you didn't see the trailers to this, they actually really do spend a whole great time like building the characters, especially with exposition that works to where they don't really know each other that's going around. And so it kind of plays very similar to Reservoir Dogs, where the characters don't know each other and they have to go by fake names and stuff, which I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it definitely gave me those kind of vibes in a good way. And if you didn't ever see the trailers, this could have really been a great twist if it played into the whole after the first 40 minutes takes place, because it almost seems like there's a force that's happening in the house that the characters are not really aware of. And if this was a movie that I would have maybe watched like late at night, like I was when I was a kid, when I was coming across like another film that came out, like for example Demon Knight, if I was in that same kind of mindset, I would have really been surprised, because I remember, not to go off topic, but I remember when I was seeing something like Demon Knight and not really knowing what not seeing the trailers or anything. That movie going in blind really got me because it had its great twists, because it was able to blend into something that after it builds up a lot of great suspense, it turned into something that was really unexpected. So both this movie and that one kind of can also go in that double feature as well, if you had never seen the trailers on that. But also that very like isolated and kind of claustrophobic level where it's all trapped in one house still works in that regard too. But other than that though, I will have to say too that to get into any kind of little minor cons, we'll have to say is that the movie does have some some that happens where one character that happens toward later on in the film, and I did kind of question the rules on some of the vampire lore that takes place, but I'll leave it there. That, and also there's a character that is introduced fairly early on that I did kind of pretty much know where it was going to go throughout the movie. And there's some predictable stuff that happens here and there that I knew what was going to happen toward the end of. That is something that I unfortunately did kind of hold the movie back, because it would have been great had I not really known what was happening with a certain character and stuff, and it maybe did like a whole spin on something. But I get the reason why they did it. But other than that, though, I still had a blast with this movie, and it's definitely going to be one of my other favorites of the year. And with that, I'm going to give the movie a low phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter. So, for those of you who have also seen Abigail, let me know in the comments of what you thought about it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.